Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you all here for the Speak Off tonight. The Lions annual Speak Off. I'm not sure, but I think this is for some probably 23, 24 years it's been on to go. And we're very fortunate again tonight in having 6 contestants. I think we have 3 young gentlemen there and 3 ladies, and they're all eager to speak. So without any further ado, I guess I'll call on the speakers then, the contestants to speak. I should note before the event begins that each contestant will speak, and then there will be 2 questions directed at that particular person. We have 2 questioners here tonight, and we'll introduce these later as well. And you'll be just referred to as numbers until the evening is pretty well clued up, and then I'll actually tell people who you are if they don't already know. So anyway, speaker number 1.
The crater where the bomb exploded is very much evident, as is the nearby damage caused by its explosion. The crater can be seen to the right of the road and 4 feet in front of the iron fence. Windows are blown out, and the tattered skeletons of canopies create a bizarre overhang. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Lions and Lioness, and fellow contestants. What you have just heard is not a war story from an overseas country, but the report of a bombing that took place on January 29, 1998 in Birmingham, Alabama. This bombing was the result of a terrorist act upon an abortion clinic. The life of an innocent man was taken, and an employee of the clinic was severely injured. The terrorist who bombed the clinic was never caught. He and many more like him are still out there terrorizing these medical clinics and denying people of their human rights, specifically the right to freedom of choice. Abortion, although it is not always realized, falls into 2 categories: induced abortion and spontaneous abortion. Spontaneous abortion is the natural passing of an unborn fetus from a woman's body. Induced abortion is the expulsion of a fetus from the body by a simple legal medical procedure or by other illegal methods. Although induced abortion has been widely practiced in all societies since ancient times, it is treated very differently from spontaneous abortion. Spontaneous abortion is considered to be a natural part of life, but induced abortion is considered to be a crime or even murder by some. Still today, a fraction of the world's population live in countries where abortions are illegal or are only allowed if a woman's life is in danger. Another part of the world's population live in countries where abortions are only allowed for social, economical, physical, or psychological reasons. Yet a number of people live in countries where abortions are considered to be legal medical procedures and an unwanted pregnancy can be terminated upon request. Abortion has been the center of controversy and violent encounters throughout the whole of the 20th century. 2 groups of people described as pro-life and pro-choice are at the center of this controversy. The pro-life group describe abortion as being legalized murder. They believe that life begins at conception, and their main goal is to abolish abortion and to ensure that every child that is conceived has the chance to be born. They also believe that no person has the right whether to decide to abort a child or not. The pro-choice group, on the other hand, feel that a woman has the right to control her own body, and with this comes the right to decide whether or not to abort a child. Pro-lifers say that an unborn fetus is alive, and they are indeed correct in saying this. It is a biological mechanism that converts nutrients and oxygen into energy, which causes cells to multiply and grow. But being alive does not give a fetus full human rights. Only a person has full human rights, and a fetus is not a person, it is merely a potential person. It does have some rights to a certain extent though, but those rights do not exceed the rights of an already existing person. Since a fetus is totally dependent on the mother, and what the mother does affects the fetus, when things go wrong with the fetus, it has negative effects on the mother's health. Therefore, a woman should have the right to abort a fetus that can have negative effects on her health and is totally dependent on her body for survival. Pro-lifers argue that abortion is immoral and that all life should be preserved, but they are in constant contradiction with themselves. They do not wish to preserve life when they kill an abortionist, nor when they pose an attack on a person who supports the pro-choice group. A woman who is afraid to have an abortion because of what others may say, or because she lives in a country where abortion is illegal, often takes matters into their own hands by performing an unsafe, illegal abortion, or as they are sometimes called, a back alley abortion. These abortions are self-inflicted and are often performed with the use of knives or clothes hangers. An illegal abortion often results in the infection or death of the recipient. Many people facing the problem of an unwanted pregnancy are torn between the decision of adoption, abortion, or raising a child that they aren't ready to have. Oftentimes, a woman who gives a child up for adoption goes through more turmoil than a woman who has an abortion. An unwanted child should not be brought into a world that already has a share of unwanted children. The decision to have an abortion is a personal choice, and it should not be influenced by the beliefs of others. It is never an easy decision for a woman to make, and it is unfair for others to make this decision even more difficult. Thank you.
With the access now to abortion, there are a lot of concerns that maybe abortion will be used as a form of birth control. Do you think this is a possibility?
Well, I don't feel that this is a strong possibility because many people understand that there are a lot of people against abortion. And even though it is being practiced more frequently nowadays, people only use it when they feel that it's necessary for them. And I don't think that a person after having one abortion will get pregnant again and feel that they do not want a child and have another abortion.
You mentioned several times in your speech about it's a woman's right, it's her body, it's whatnot. How do you answer those who say that this should be a decision that's reached by both parties involved in the conception of the unborn child, being both the father and the mother? Several people are taking it one step farther, saying the father has no rights until the child is born. Until that time, it remains a woman's choice. How would you address that?
I believe that it should be the choice of both parties, but I also believe that if a woman decides that she does not want this child in her body, it should be more of her decision. And even though the father should have a lot of say in it, it should be more of the right of the woman, because oftentimes when this is a issue among the parents, the father is not always around.
Good evening, judges, parents, lions, lioness, fellow contestants, ladies and gentlemen. The subject that I have chosen to speak on is reverse discrimination. Over the last 100 years, mankind has developed a great deal socially. We now accept the idea that all men and all women are created equal. No longer can you be denied a job because of your age, race, sex, or culture, and we like to think that all is now fair and just. Not so long ago, minorities were ostracized and exploited, but thanks to government programs and watchdog groups, these people are now guaranteed the same rights as the majority group. Towards the end of the 20th century, however, the pendulum began to swing to the other extreme. Society now suffers from a new form of discrimination. This new breed of prejudice is now focused on the majority, attacking whites, males, and heterosexuals, and is called reverse discrimination. Reverse discrimination occurs when a person who has power favors minorities over the majority, giving them special rights just because they belong to a minority or to a previously discriminated against group. This may occur in education, where a professor fears he will be called a racist if he fails a minority student, so he passes him even though he does not deserve the grade. It can occur in business, when an employer hires a less adequately trained minority worker, not because of his resume, but because it will meet a government quota of minority employees. These quotas are numbers of minority employees government requires some businesses to hire. The rules are intended to make sure all groups are treated fairly, but often they mean that a majority member is mistreated. Reverse sexism occurs today as well. If two 17-year-old teenagers, one male and one female, receive their driver's license at the same time and both apply for automobile insurance at the same type of vehicle, the male will have to pay more than double the insurance premiums as the female. Insurance companies are discriminating against male drivers when they base their premiums on the category of sex, male or female, rather than the individual driver. In business, if a man is hired over a woman, feminist groups will often instantly become outraged, even if the male has equal qualifications for the desired job. Sexual orientation also plays a role in the reverse discrimination. In efforts to meet the needs of minorities and see that they are getting an equal share of government funds, the government sometimes forgets the basic needs of everyone. While the government can barely afford food, our health systems, and shelter, taxpayers' money is being used to provide government grants to homosexual groups for projects to promote queer culture. They don't want to be seen as discriminating against homosexuals after all. What has happened in our society is that majority members are being discriminated against by people in authority being overzealous in their efforts to compensate for previous discrimination. I am in favor of equality for everyone, but I do get upset with overcompensation leading to reverse discrimination. If a woman wants a leadership role in a company, then she should be the best candidate for the job, not simply the best female candidate. If February can be celebrated as Black History Month, then individuals should not share racism if white wants to celebrate White History Month in March. So what can be done to eliminate these new biases? I believe that one of the main ways to help is to first identify that majorities can be discriminated against as well as minorities. We must truly believe that the rights of all people must be protected in order for our equality in this world to be legitimate. We must learn to judge all people individually rather than categorically. Another significant way to eliminate this new kind of discrimination is to abolish current government policy. This policy requires specific percentages of minority workers in businesses ran or aided by government must employ. The government should trust its citizens to hire the most qualified worker in the thinking that it will obviously hire the more skilled employee so the company will be better off. The government still would have a role in equality measures, but in different ways, such as dealing with specific cases in which a person, minority or majority, is denied a job to a less qualified competitor. The key to true equality, however, is not to simply identify that a minority person has certain rights that we must meet or else we will be punished. We must accept the fact that all people are equal. We must not look at someone as being male, female, black, or white. We must see them for what they are, a person, unique and valued for being himself. Thank you.
Your discussion is rather impassioned, but I wonder, the issue which you're talking about, and you mentioned in the last 100 years, Western society in the last 100 years had to take a few bloody noses before they had truly understood what it meant when one group tried to run roughshod over another. The issue of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which allows for what you call reverse discrimination, is aimed at bringing people who have been held down for such a long time to positions where they can better help themselves and others like them. What would you say to someone who listened to your argument and said that it's not reverse discrimination because discrimination still exists widely in our own society?
Well, I agree that discrimination still occurs widely in our society, but reverse discrimination occurs as well when some people misinterpret these rules and are overzealous in their compensation of minority groups.
Memorial University has a program called WISE, Women in Engineering and Science. And the program was originally designed to encourage women into the fields of engineering and science that were mostly male-dominated. Now, this program is still ongoing, and I'm wondering, do you view it as discriminatory? And if it's a program whose time has come and it's probably outlived its usefulness?
Well, I'm not really familiar with that group, but if the group allows for men to become engineers just as equally as women, then I'm all in favor of it. But if it tries to keep men from getting the jobs so they'll be open to women, then I'm opposed to it because true equality can't occur if men are being discriminated against just as women were in the past.
3, please.
Morgan, age 11, is an orphan of AIDS. He says, I need a watch and a pair of shoes. I want a bicycle so I can get to school on time because the bus is always late. Good evening, lions, lioness, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, I'd like to talk to you about what it means to be a child in countries less fortunate than ours. A minute ago, I told you of Morgan, a young boy from Africa who faces the constant struggle just to be able to go to school. He is living with a deadly disease, and he is going through it alone. His parents and his brothers and sisters have already died from this disease, yet he tries to make his final years count. The frightening thing about this matter is that this loneliness and isolation is not limited to AIDS-infected kids, nor is it a problem in 1 or 2 countries. All over the world, children are fighting for some of the basic rights and freedoms that we all take for granted. In Mali, Mozambique, Iran, Iraq, South Africa, and countless other countries, children are suffering every day from physical and emotional pain. They are being shunned by everyone around them, and far too often there are no programs in place to help them. Even their parents, the people whom they expect to love them more than life itself, are powerless to ease the problems, and sometimes even add to the problems. Other children live alone and grow up thinking that clothes are a luxury, but guns are a necessity. It is hard to believe that 6 and 7-year-olds can think like this, but it is even more unimaginable to think that they could possibly be right. These kids are forced to take part in a seemingly never-ending series of wars, while there are others who are affected by wars they have no desire to be a part of. Their lives and their memories are affected forever. 13-year-old Asatu Karbo was forced to watch people lie in a fire until they were dead. Then they cut off her hands. She was left to die, but managed to survive to tell her story and live with her nightmares. These are certainly not the images that we associate with childhood. Yet, far too many children live under these extreme conditions where even hope for the future is tainted. They live in places where poverty seems inevitable. Some of the lucky ones work in places such as the Nike manufacturing industry or the Sweeto diamond mines, where they are being underpaid and overworked. India has an estimated 100 million child workers, and Brazil has about 500,000 child prostitutes. Theirs is not a part-time job to get money for a planned holiday or a special piece of clothes. This is a full-time job that totally eliminates their childhood, but is necessary for their survival. Lalu is a typical example. He was taken out of school to supplement his parents' $14 monthly income. He earns 85 cents a day for 11 hours of breaking rock at a quarry in New Delhi. While we in Canada take our right for an education for granted, for many children, education is a privilege they will never get. As Canadian children, we worry, or our parents worry, about the cost of a higher education. While in third world countries, children are overwhelmed to be receiving lessons in simple arithmetic. Yes, we are making progress, but it is sometimes hard to be considered progress when 28 countries are still practicing the age-old custom of genital mutilation. Young girls as young as 6 years old are forced to have the clitoris and labia minor surgically removed. This procedure is performed in front of the whole community while using a razor blade or some other crude instrument. More importantly, it is performed with the consent of the parent, which brings me back to the point of parents contributing to the loss of childhood. The practice of bride selling is another custom that must not be allowed to continue if we are to protect children worldwide. Young women, children really, from the age of 12 to 16 years, are sold by their father or some other authority figure. The groom is often a much older male who is then free to do as he pleases with this piece of property he has just bought. You would think that with all the advancements with society in general, the improvements would also be seen in some of the third world countries. This is not the case. These places are still poverty-stricken, and even where there have been improvements, they are still woefully inadequate. For example, in Ghana, daycare centers are making it possible for preschoolers to learn simple arithmetic, which their government sees as a major improvement. However, many of these students will not make it past the 6th grade, and surviving past the age of 20 is a great achievement, so there's still much to be done. Organizations such as Doctors Without Borders, Foster Parents Plan, or Feed the Children campaigns try to help, but every day they are forced to tell starving children that they do not have enough food to feed all of them. People who have so much find it difficult to understand these hardships these kids have to endure. We can read about it in the magazines and watch all the TV information programs and still have absolutely no understanding of the situation. It does help not to be oblivious of the situation, but it is even more important to do something about it. After all, it shouldn't hurt.
The things they do are very much wrapped up in their religious beliefs, their traditions, and their culture. In some tribes, the more children you have, the more prosperous you are seen to be. What can we do to try to alleviate some of the suffering that is occurring in some of these countries?
Well, you were first talking about the ties that it has with religion. And although this is really true, in our society today, we can't afford to be hurting all these children, especially where they're in such great number. We can't be practicing customs that harm the people who we are supposed to love. So we can educate the parents and the children to stop them from continuing such customs. They can still follow through with a lot of their customs. We're not asking them to eliminate everything that they know. But if they just educate themselves and know what they are doing is not helping anyone, instead it is harming the ones that they are supposed to love. Thank you.
Just to sort of expand on the last question, some people will say it's not right for one group to try to impose their beliefs on another group. And it'd be obvious if it were, say, a Christian to force Christianity upon someone of the Jewish religion or belief. Why then do you feel that it should be our right to impose our sense of society on another group who may have a different idea of what society should be?
Well, I don't think that we should impose like all of our cultures onto these people, but we should try to educate them in telling them that what they're doing is harmful. We're not trying to eliminate their culture, and we're not telling them that what they're learning about and what they've learned about for thousands of years is wrong. We're just trying to educate them more, to let them know that they cannot continue treating their children like this, or they will never become what they see that they should be. They're blaming their problems on something that they themselves are creating. They're saying that they're too violent, yet they're imposing violence from a very young age. So I guess in a way, we need to let them know that they need to blame their problems on something else, or else, they're never going to advance. Thank you.
Number 4, please.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, I would like to speak on an issue very close to the hearts of Newfoundlanders. Specifically, I would like to speak about the food fishery and why Newfoundland has only 2 weekends during the summer, while Nova Scotia gets over 2 months. The food fishery falls under federal jurisdiction. This means that it is up to the federal government to decide who fishes, where they fish, and how much they can catch. The government is allowing Nova Scotia to fish for over 2 months in the summer, allowing them to catch 5 fish per person every day with a maximum of 25 fish per boat. The government, however, is allowing Newfoundlanders only 2 weekends during the summer to catch 10 fish per person with a maximum of 50 fish per boat. The government is setting double standards in this aspect because it is treating Newfoundlanders different from Nova Scotians on the same issue. If it was the provincial government that made this decision, it could be somewhat understandable, but it wasn't. The federal government made the decision. When it was announced last year that Nova Scotia would receive over 2 months for their food fishery, the Minister of Tourism for Nova Scotia wrote a letter to the federal government thanking them for making the decision that they did. The Minister of Tourism said that it would help Nova Scotia's tourism industry greatly. This is great for Nova Scotia, but I am sure that a 2-month food fishery in Newfoundland would help Newfoundland's tourism industry as well. Tourism is equally important to both provinces, and therefore, should be any way to improve tourism should be made an equal opportunity in both provinces, not just Nova Scotia. The decision of where the food fishery will occur is determined according to the abundance of fish in specific zones. One zone could be issued a food fishery, while zones around it may not get one at all. The government said that zones surrounding Nova Scotia could support a food fishery for the duration of the summer, but that the zones surrounding Newfoundland could not support such a fishery. These zones are separated only by imaginary lines. The image the government is portraying to me is that fish stay within their own zones. As far as I know, fish don't even know what these zones are or where they're at. So, are codfish advancing with technology so that they have GPSs to let them know where the no fishing zones are? Cod have been known to migrate hundreds of miles north and south. So, isn't it reasonable to say that codfish can swim across the Gulf too? Is there some wall in the Gulf that prevents the plentiful Nova Scotia cod from coming to Newfoundland? The government has said that cod stocks off this coast have improved, but that stocks off the northeast coast haven't improved. So, why can't we get a food fishery just off this coast? When the moratorium came into effect, the government said that the reason for the closure of the fishery was because the cod stocks were depleted and couldn't support the fishery anymore. There was no recreational food fishery that year because stocks couldn't support that either. Today, in general, the stocks are improving to the extent that last year we were allowed a commercial fishery on this coast again. If the stocks can support a food fishery, then surely, if the stocks can support a commercial fishery, surely they can support a food fishery. When the food fishery was opened in Newfoundland last year, there were several drownings reported of people going out in high winds trying to catch their fish. The reason that these drownings occurred was that honest, law-abiding Newfoundlanders went out in weather conditions that weren't fit to get their fish. Hadn't these people went out, they wouldn't have got any fish. And therefore, they took foolish risks because they were only given one shot. Some scientists have said that the cod are considered an endangered species. The government is therefore allowing Nova Scotians to catch and kill endangered species. But Newfoundlanders must stay and abide by the laws. If the cod is really an endangered species, then we should be protecting it equally, everywhere, not just in designated zones. Unfortunately, many things have arisen as a result of the differences in the food fishery between Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, such as stresses between provinces, economic differences based on location, and even the death of innocent fisher persons. All of this is unnecessary and furthermore avoidable if only the recreational food fishery was equal everywhere. Thank you.
In your speech, you made a comment that caught my attention. I come from the land of Anne Green Gables. We know tourism. And you talked about the fishery and tourism. I want to pose a statement to you, and it's a controversial statement, but I want you to sort of comment on it in the realm of just Burgeo here as part of Newfoundland. The comment is this: the fishery is dead. Take your money and build up beautiful Burgeo with sandbanks and whatnot into a tourist center rather than a center for the fishery. Comment on that.
You say for us to build up Burgeo into a beautiful sandbanks and other beautiful things we have to offer. But think about this. If we had all the sandbanks and all the beautiful hills and scenery that we have and all the water, think about how much better that would be if we could go out in the summer and jig a fish and just have our traditional heritage. Thank you.
You mentioned that a specific zone could support Nova Scotia fishery, whereas a certain other zone could not support a Newfoundland fishery. Could it be that maybe Newfoundlanders fish harder? It's a traditionally a fishing province, and people have fished it hard and fished it long, more so maybe than in Nova Scotia. Being fair doesn't necessarily mean treating everyone the same. How could you comment on that?
Well, I'd have to agree that Newfoundlanders did fish long and hard and spent many hours pursuing the fishery because in the past that was, I consider, probably the only or certainly mainly the primary source of employment for the whole province. Whereas Nova Scotia could fall back on other things, so it wasn't focused on as much. But the cod were considered in zones. Like the government said, the zone here could not support fishery, this zone could. Cod can't swim, and therefore they can swim here, there, wherever they want. They're free. There's no containment on them. So if they tested it in the Centennial fishery, and they said that, okay, there's a lot of fish here, we can have a food fishery, but there's not a lot of fish here, we can't. There's many reasons that the fish could have been just migrating at that time. They could have been full, they could have been feeding, they could have been just not there. But you can't just base a food fishery just on one or two, or for that matter, several experimental fisheries.
Speaker number 5.
Good evening, Lions, Lioness, judges, and parents. Tonight I have chosen to speak on environmental pollution. To me, this is a very important topic that concerns everyone and the many generations to come. I should start out by saying that people through history have left the waste behind them, and it's only now that we are starting to realize the effects. We are now well into the 21st century, and obviously it is not getting any better. Dangerous chemicals seeping into our soil, plastic floating in our oceans, untreated sewage, and acid rain are some of the world's pollution problems. It may not seem that these problems are really serious, but because of the small amount of participation in cleanup programs and the Earth's increasing population, these problems are growing enormously. We should all realize that something has to be done. The large population produces 3 major types of waste: municipal, which is waste from homes, schools, offices, and restaurants; industrial, which is waste from factories, plants, and mines; and nuclear, which is waste from atomic factories, nuclear power plants, and nuclear reactors. These wastes can be solids, liquids, or gases. Each is equally dangerous to our environment. Of course, we can get rid of waste by disposal, but we can never really totally eliminate the problem. However, if we reduce the amount of waste, we reduce the severity of the problem. There are 2 major types of waste disposal: landfills, where waste is buried and covered with soil, and incinerators, where waste is burned at extremely high temperatures. Even when we try to get rid of waste, eventually it is released back into our environment. The only real solution to the problem is to eliminate the need for waste disposal, and this can be done through recycling. About 4/5 of all household garbage can be recycled. Knowing that there are solutions is part of the answer. If we fail to act on these solutions, we can face serious problems that can happen and will happen if we do not change. Take, for example, the greenhouse effect, a combination of methane, carbon dioxide, and other gases build up slowly in the air. They then absorb heat energy radiating from the Earth's atmosphere and re-radiate some of the heat back towards Earth. This causes the Earth to slightly warm up. It may not sound that important, but it would drastically outbalance the world's wildlife, melt icebergs, and cause the level of seawater to rise. There is also the ozone layer, which is a layer of ozone gas in the stratosphere that shields the Earth from ultraviolet radiation coming from the sun. The ozone layer currently has several holes in it because of the dangerous gases that we produce. Scientists are now working on ways to patch these holes up. Certain companies are using deforestation to clear land for agriculture or to fund timber. Deforestation eliminates trees that absorbs carbon dioxide. If the trees are burned, large amounts of carbon dioxide are added to our environment. Also, the world's valuable minerals, such as cadmium, gold, tin, lead, silver, are being used up. If we keep extracting these minerals, reserves will last no longer than 50 years. Recently, there was another extremely important issue when scientists said that cancer, birth defects, cardiac and chronic bronchial damage are among the most familiar examples of physical impairment related to pollution. Don't we owe it to ourselves and the future generations to come to try and stop or reduce the amount of pollution? Otherwise, we can end up poisoning beyond repair the world in which our children and our grandchildren will have to live in. We have to let others know this is a mutual problem and that cities, industries, and governments have to take their part too. In their efforts to improve our way of life, they have polluted our land, water, and atmosphere. We have to change our attitude and realize the Earth will not recover from all the terrible things we are doing to it. Our environment is our home, our only home. Can we really afford to destroy it? Thank you.
There are many individuals and private groups that who are very active in supporting a greener planet. What are some things that they can do to encourage our society to decrease or even eliminate pollution?
There are many companies that are starting up, such as Green Depot. They are helping, but I believe that Virgin only has one, and that's not enough. If we had more opportunities and more committees that help us get together as groups, as a community, and help stop the elimination of pollution, I think that would be a lot better. I also believe that people should try a little harder. I believe that if we walk the extra step to the garbage can or put on the extra sweater or turn off the water, that would affect our environment for the better. Thank you.
With all these steps that you're advocating as far as eliminating pollution or at least decreasing it, it's going to cost not just individuals but companies and governments even quite a bit of money to implement. Where do you think that money should come from, and what do you think would be would be detrimented by diverting monies into pollution control?
Well, I do believe that governments have to enforce laws that cause industries to have to spend so much money installing equipment to reduce the amount of pollution. But I also believe that it's not money that is the problem. I believe that it's people that is the problem. There is many people that waste a lot of goods and services, and there's a lot of people that try not to, and I believe that if more of us try, then we can. For the money aspect, I think that governments should be able to think of the future of the generations, and I believe that they should realize that if they don't change now, they're going to be sorry in the later run. I believe that a little bit of money here and there to support community groups such as Green Depot and other ones that help our environment will not make a big difference. Thank you.
Speaker number 6, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, fellow speakers, and wise lionesses. The topic I chose to speak on tonight is our heritage loss. Specifically, I would like to show how young people like myself lost a major part of our heritage when the Cossacks completed the forced moratorium in 1992. Since then, the government designates a couple weekends a year for the so-called food fishery. Last year, when I took part, I went out 3 times I had to come in, either because of a lack of fish or rough seas. On the first 3 days of the food fishery, the winds were too high to go out. If I did go out, I would risk my life and my boat. This is a very serious situation being forced upon us by our government. Yet, it is a situation with a very simple solution. The Department of Fisheries and Oceans should issue tags to Newfoundlanders interested in taking part in the food fishery to use whenever they see fit in a period of a year, so that people can go out and get fresh fish whenever they want it. They can still keep the same limits established for 2 weekends of the food fishery, but it would mean more benefits for young people like the other speakers and myself. We can learn to catch and prepare fish the same way our grandparents, great-grandparents did before us. If not, the art of catching, splitting, and salting fish will be lost on only a small few of upcoming fisher people that would choose fishing inshore as a career. In my grandfather's day, he learned catching, splitting, salting, and drying fish from his father. Now, this heritage is being lost like a lot of other things of years ago. Now everything is high-tech, and that's what held us in the state in the first place. If it wasn't for such things as fish finders and factory feeder trawlers, the basic stroke grandmates clean and ruined the breeding grounds for cod, Newfoundlanders would be in the safety ring now. Yes, I believe in technology. I use a computer every day, but I wouldn't use it to hurt my long-term livelihood or anyone else's at that point. There's a thin line between technology being used to do good and technology being used to do harm. The government should have done more research before allowing these ships on fishing grounds. Now, very few young Newfoundlanders know anything about the way things once were in Newfoundland. Now in school, when we read stories about Newfoundland, the way things used to be, and how young people go to work at such an early age, I am amazed they seem to mature much more faster and completely than we do. For example, 2 boys of 12 can almost kill 100 seals each a day. The fishery was the reason Newfoundland was settled. The shores around Newfoundland were so rich when John Cabot came over and lowered Bass over the side of Matthew and hauled them up full of fish. If it wasn't for that happening in 1497, Newfoundland would have been settled as fast as it was. This plentiful stock is now starting to dry up, and the young Newfoundlanders must suffer. We should have the same right to catch cod as Indians had to hunt caribou. They came here for caribou, and the European people came here for the cod. It seems that the government only listened to Indians who had signed treaties. If it wasn't for the Europeans who had signed these treaties with the Indians, that the Indians wouldn't be able to hunt and fish now, basically the same way they could 600 years ago. In some cases, Indians are allowed to kill endangered species, and we still aren't allowed to go fishing, and cod is even an endangered species. I guess the Europeans didn't see any point in signing treaties with themselves to go fishing. The Department of Heritage is always pumping money into funding big parties and activities that promote tourism. Being the Department of Heritage, I think they should promote the heritage of the fishery with young people like us, instead of putting so much money into soirees and cattle farm hunters and such activities. I wonder which is more important, tourism, or tourists come to see wooden ships that cost the government of Newfoundland, and in turn the Canadian government millions of dollars, or people holding on to a traditional way of life. Which is more important, tourism, where tourists come to see the beauty of our province, the small fishing communities and stages to enjoy cod, or people having the skill to perform these tasks? Soon, the question will be immaterial, because the government won't put any money into such programs to show young people how to prepare cod, the same way our grandparents did. These fishing stages will not exist 50 years from now, and tourism will no longer be a feasible industry. I think they should put more emphasis on showing young people the way things once were in Newfoundland, and who we are, and how we got to where we are today. It is only by learning from the past that we can take care of the future. A future without cod in Newfoundland is inconceivable. Equally inconceivable must be a future where Newfoundlanders aren't allowed to go fishing, where young people grow up totally isolated from their heritage. Thank you.
The cod moratorium has caused fishermen or fishing people to look at fishing in a different way from years ago. Just can't go out and catch all the fish you like. Can you comment on this? What way are fishermen looking at fishing now that may be different than years ago?
Well, I guess the fishermen probably now are looking at the fishery basically is not a resource of what we do for here. Since they've seen the cod sort of like die out and more trying to come on that so they can't catch it, I guess you would think it could act basically anything else you could catch. And now they're seeing like they're developing more underutilized species such as crab and other such things as sea urchins. So now more money will come into our pockets when cod do come back. Thank you.
It's sometimes believed that people confuse what they do with who they are. Your argument seems to be that the heritage of Newfoundland is that Newfoundlanders are fishermen, and that is their heritage. How would you comment to someone who says that you are a Newfoundlander because you are a Newfoundlander? You know, proud of your province, proud of your fellow Newfoundlanders, and that change is something that is inevitable, and sometimes you have to let go of the past. How would you argue your heritage point there if someone was to make that?
Well, all cultures, Newfoundlanders and any other culture in Canada, has to have some background, has to have somewhere to come from. And in Newfoundland, the cod and stuff is our heritage, and we can't let go of these things so change can take place. Thank you.
Okay, again, I'd like to thank the 6 speakers. And now I'm going to ask the judges to do the unenviable task of going in and choosing which one of these 6 winners actually came first, second, third. So I'll ask the judges now to retire to the boardroom and make that decision, please. Again, I think we all agree that it was rather quite a great performance these 6 young students put on. Each one of them is a winner in their own right, there's no question about that. And again, I think we should give them a big hand before we go any further. So now we're going to lift some of these numbers and unveil the people actually are. Speaker number 1, Julia Benoit. I don't know how much I'm supposed to tell with these people. Anyway, she's the person that spoke on abortion, first speaker then. A level 1 student, as is the other 5 contestants. They're all level 1 students. So I guess we can feel pretty secure in saying that we probably have some speakers for years to come. And I'm sure probably some of their fellow students will join in with them. There's no way we should be losing either of these 6 for sure, based on their speeches tonight. Julia, as you know, I guess most of you at least, is the daughter of Ken and Doreen. She's interested in most all sports. She's a member of the student council and a volunteer at BBS, and I'm sure quite active in other things as well. Speaker number 2, Glenn Tucker. He spoke on reverse discrimination. Glenn is the son of Jim and Ruth Tucker. Glenn is in the cadets. I think he's pretty proud of the cadets and a very active cadet. He's particularly interested in hockey and basketball, and he plans to become a doctor in the military when he finishes school. By the way, I don't have Julia's here because she didn't show up this evening when I told her to meet. But Julia had told me afterwards when I was speaking with her, and I didn't know it there. I just thought of it when I mentioned Glenn becoming a doctor and all that. Julia is also interested in the field of medicine. She plans on probably furthering her education in the field of education, or probably in medicine. Speaker number 3, Dana Payne. She spoke on children and mistreatment, I guess, in third world countries. She's our daughter, Doris, right there, and you can see the other person. She's keenly interested in all sports as well. She likes to read and watch TV. I think if you want anybody anytime you're on to want to be a millionaire and you want somebody on a TV show, Dana can help you there. She's definitely planning on going to Vaughan when she finishes her schooling year in Burgeo, but as far as what she's going to do after that, she hasn't thought beyond, I don't think, grade 10 yet. Dana's also a BBS volunteer. She's a volunteer at the Calder Health Care Centre and a member of the Student Council. Line with some other things I'm going to mention. I know more than Dana knows. No, the other things are nice too, I'm just kidding. Speaker number 4, Benjamin Thatcher. Benjamin is the son of Bruce and Beverly Thatcher. Benjamin spoke on the Newfoundland cod fishery versus the Nova Scotia cod fishery. He's interested in fishing, probably that's what brought that particular topic to mind. Particularly, he tells me, in salmon fishing and trouting. And if you want some salmon flies tied, he said, come and see him. He likes tying salmon flies. He plans on going to university, and pretty much like Dana, I guess, he's not decided either exactly what he wants to pursue a career in. Speaker number 5, Julia Billard. She spoke on pollution and the effects on the environment then. She's the daughter of Irving and Darlene Billard. She is a volunteer, or volunteer at the, I don't know what they call it, volunteers there and volunteers everywhere else, but anyway, they tell me it's volunteers at the Colorado Health Care Center in her spare time then. And she plans on attending MUN upon finishing school and becoming a social worker. Speaker number 6, Ross Ann. He spoke on Heritage Lost when the, again, connecting with the failure of the Codstocks, of course. He's the son of Glenn and Laura Hann. Ross also enjoys fishing, so again, you can see the connection there, fishing and boating. He's also interested in woodworking and computers. And Ross tells me that when he finishes school, he's going to finish his education. He's going in probably into carpentry, and he's not quite sure, probably the Canadian Coast Guard. So I'm wondering if he's probably trying to follow in his Uncle Frank's footsteps. So anyway, that's the speakers then. Now you're all really interested, aren't you? That's good. Okay, I guess I should now introduce
Do you want us to play?
No. Introduce the, excuse me. Introduce the judges and questioners. Nobody recognized that person, did they, by the way? Okay, thank you. Again, I find it every year, like, I think for the last 3 or 4 years, I don't know why, certainly not because I do a good job probably at the event, but they can't find anyone else to do it, I believe. And by now, I think I've asked every questioner and every person around town that I feel make a good judge be a judge, so probably they feel now at least I know where to go and look for people. But without hesitation, I say tonight that we've got as good a selection of questioners and judges as we quite possibly have. I have quite a lot of confidence that the judges will, they can't be wrong anyway, that's one thing about it, they'll make a decision here tonight. And the questioners, we seem like we fall back on all the time. I say we, but me, I go to Rose and Constable Henderson quite frequently, the last couple of years anyway. And I see no reason to change based on tonight, so I'll probably ask you now if you do it again next year. So we're all aware, I guess, that Mrs. Rose Thatcher, she's the kindergarten teacher in Burgeo at Adelaide Matthews Elementary, and she's been in that position for quite some years, and I guess she's looking forward to the next 2 or 3 and then some fun relaxation. Probably should be able to read some books like Damon watch the live television. Constable Anderson is stationed there at the RCMP detachment in Burgeo, and Mr. Anderson has been with us for some years now, and hopefully, like I say, for many more, at least to add to this function. I'm not sure about the rest of it. Just kidding. The judges, Mr. Hector Pollard, again, I guess he needs no introduction, but somebody might be from outside, I'm not quite sure. He's a retired teacher here, and school administrator, of course. Mr. Norman Marison, retired teacher and principal. And Ms. Miranda Thornell. She's the pharmacist here in Burgeo. So I guess I'd like to say thank you to the judges one more time, and the questioners, certainly. Thank you very much. this right, anybody got anything here to verify this? Okay, the person coming in third place was speaker number 4. By the way, if the road had closed down an hour earlier, we wouldn't have had this. That's okay. Congratulations, speaker number 4, Benjamin Batcher. Second place goes to speaker number 5. And first place goes to speaker number 3. So now I'll call on the other 3 winners to pick up their participation plaques. And by the way, we do have prizes for first, second, and third. I think it's 50, 30, and 20. I'm not quite sure. I'll check it out in a few seconds. And the other speakers do get $10 prizes as well. So the other 3 speakers, please.
My pretty boys and girls. Last year.